On the night thunder split the heavens, a woman heard a baby crying under the baobab tree. The child's face was twisted, one eye blind, and strange symbols circled him in the mud. Everyone said, "Leave him. He's cursed." But she didn't. She carried him home. And years later, when the rich man returned claiming, "That's my son," the gods themselves seemed to rise from the river to judge them all. In the dusty village of Asanka, where the hills kissed the clouds and drums echoed each evening like a heartbeat, there lived a woman named Amma. She was known as the Woman of the Hill, not because she owned land or riches, but because her small mud hut stood alone at the edge of the high ground overlooking the village. Amma was in her late 30s, though sorrow had aged her faster. Her husband, Kojo, had died 8 years ago in a mining accident, leaving her with no children and no family nearby. She survived by weaving baskets and selling them at the weekly market, sometimes trading them for cassava, palm oil or salt. Every evening she sat outside her hut, watching the sun melt into the horizon. Her neighbors would say, "Ah, poor Amma. Her womb was never blessed. Even the gods have forgotten her." But Amma would smile faintly and whisper, "The gods forget no one. Maybe they are just quiet today." Still, silence was heavy in her home. No baby's cry, no laughter, no footsteps but her own. Until the night of the storm. It was a night when thunder tore the sky open and rain lashed against the earth like angry whips. The wind screamed through the hills, rattling the thatched roofs and slamming doors wide open. Amma was weaving by the dim light of her oil lamp when she heard it, a faint, broken cry carried through the storm. At first, she thought it was a goat lost in the rain. But then she heard it again, a human cry. Desperate. Like someone begging the heavens for mercy. Amma grabbed her shawl, lit her lantern, and ran into the darkness. The rain soaked her to the bone, and the muddy path made her stumble. The cries grew louder, leading her toward the old baobab tree near the riverbank. When she reached it, her heart froze. There, lying in a torn piece of cloth, was a baby, no more than a few weeks old. His skin was pale and wrinkled, his eyes swollen shut, his tiny limbs trembling. He was different. His face was oddly shaped, his lips too wide, one of his eyes half open but cloudy white. For a moment Amma stepped back. Fear clawed at her chest. "Who could have left this child here?" she whispered. Lightning flashed, and in that split second, she saw symbols drawn in white chalk on the ground around the baby. Markings of a curse. Every instinct told her to run. But something in that weak, trembling cry reached deep into her heart, a sound that tore through the loneliness that had consumed her for years. She wrapped the baby in her shawl and whispered, "Hush now, little one. Even if the gods have abandoned you, I will not." By morning the storm had passed. Amma carried the baby down the hill to the village healer, old Nana Bidiako, hoping for help. But as soon as she entered the healer's hut, the old woman frowned. "Where did you find this child?" Nana asked sharply. Amma explained everything, the cries, the symbols, the cold night. But when Nana examined the baby, her expression darkened. "This one is not ordinary. Look at his eye. One sees the world, the other sees the unseen. Whoever abandoned him wanted to cast away misfortune. Amma, you must not keep him." But Amma stood tall. A child cannot curse what he did not choose to be. He needs milk and warmth, not fear. Word spread quickly. By noon, everyone in Asanka knew Amma had taken in the cursed child of the storm. Mothers whispered when she passed. Children pointed and ran. Some said the baby would bring death to her house. Others swore they saw snakes near her doorway at night. Even the village chief sent a messenger to warn her. "If sickness falls on Asanka, you will answer to the gods." Amma simply replied, "Then I will answer with love." And she kept the baby. She named him Kobi, meaning born in trouble but destined for strength. Raising Kobi was not easy. He grew slower than other children. His left eye never opened fully, and his face bore marks that made strangers turn away. When he started walking, the other children mocked him, calling him Ghost Face. They threw stones when he passed, and once, they even tried to push him into the stream. Amma fought like a lioness for him. She worked twice as hard, weaving through the night to buy him clothes and porridge. She taught him to be gentle even when others were cruel. "The world may spit on you, my son," she'd say softly. "But remember, water never stays where it is thrown. It always finds its way." As he grew older, Kobi showed a strange gift. He could sense things before they happened. When the rain was coming, he'd say, "Mama, bring the baskets inside." When a goat wandered off, he could find it without searching. Once, when a neighbor's child fell sick, Kobi told Amma before the fever even began. Soon whispers changed. Some said he was blessed by the spirits. Others said the curse had turned into power. But Amma never let pride enter her heart. She only prayed he would be safe, because deep down, she knew the world feared what it could not understand. One afternoon, when Kobi was about 10 years old, Amma took him to the market in the neighboring town of Nkimu. The air was thick with spice and laughter, traders shouting over the noise of drums and goat bleats. Amma was bargaining over yams when a tall man in fine clothes stopped by her stall. His skin was lighter than most, his eyes sharp and restless. He wore a leather bag slung across his shoulder, a traveler perhaps or a merchant from the city. He looked down at Kobi for a long moment. "Too long." "That boy," the man said finally. "Is he yours?" Amma hesitated. "He is mine by heart," she said. The man nodded slowly. "Strange child. Reminds me of someone." There was something unsettling in his voice, part sadness, part disbelief. Before Amma could ask more, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. That night Kobi was quiet. He stared into the fire and asked, "Mama, why did that man look at me like he knew me?" Amma's hands froze. "Because some people carry ghosts in their eyes, my son. Don't let them haunt you." But she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, like a door had opened somewhere behind them. Months passed. Life went on simple and hard as always. Then strange things began to happen. One morning, Amma found a bag of coins outside her hut, more money than she had seen in her entire life. No note, no footprints, just the coins wrapped in red cloth. The next week, a man's voice was heard near the river at night, whispering to the wind. Some said a traveler was asking for the woman of the hill. Others said it was the ghost of the child's true father. Amma grew restless. The elders told her to perform cleansing rituals, but she refused. "If the past wants to find me," she said, "let it come in daylight." Kobi too began to sense the change. He would wake from dreams, trembling, saying, "Mama, someone is calling my name from the river." Amma would hold him close, humming the lullaby she had sung since the day she found him, the song of the hill women. Even when the river forgets its way, the sea will still remember its name. One night, Amma dreamed of the storm again, the same thunder, the same rain, the same cry under the baobab tree. But this time, when she bent to lift the baby, a man stepped out from the darkness. His face was hidden, but his voice was deep and trembling. "You took what was mine," he said. "And now I have come to take it back." Amma woke up in a cold sweat. Outside, the wind howled through the hills, and the old baobab swayed as if listening. The next morning, she found footprints near her door. Men's footprints. Fresh ones. The following week, a convoy arrived in Asanka, 3 jeeps coated in red dust. The entire village gathered to see who would come with such wealth. From the first car stepped a man in a dark blue suit. His hair was streaked with gray, his face weary but proud. Amma froze. It was the same man from the market. He walked straight toward her hut. The villagers whispered, curious and afraid. When he reached Amma, he removed his sunglasses and said softly, "Do you remember me, woman of the hill?" Amma's throat tightened. "You are the man who looked at my son as though you'd seen a ghost." He smiled bitterly. "Because I did." The crowd fell silent. "That boy," he said, voice cracking, "is my blood." Amma's heart stopped. He told her his name, Kobi Mensa, a wealthy merchant from the coast. Years ago, before he built his empire, he had fallen in love with a woman from a distant village. They had a child, but when the baby was born disfigured, his family called it a curse. His wife had died in childbirth, and in shame, his mother had ordered the baby to be taken away. "I thought he was buried," Kobi said, his voice breaking. "I did not know he lived." Amma's legs trembled. All the years of hardship, the whispers, the fear, and now the truth stood before her. "If he is truly your son," Amma said quietly, "then why did you come now?" Kobi looked toward the hills where Kobi played with a wooden toy. His eyes softened. "Because the sins of fathers never stay buried. I have come to make it right." That night, Amma sat by the fire, her heart torn in two. She looked at Kobi, sleeping peacefully, his small hand clutching the same shawl she had wrapped him in as a baby. What would become of him now? Kobi had offered to take Kobi to the city, to give him education, comfort, and a name that carried power. "He deserves more than poverty," he'd said. "Let me give him a future." But Amma's heart screamed in silence. I am his future. How could she give away the child who had given her life again? The one who had called her mama when no one else did. She remembered what the old healer once said. The eye that sees both worlds carries the weight of them too. Amma wondered if Kobi saw what was coming. Because deep down, she knew this was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of something greater, and far more dangerous. As the wind whispered through the trees that night, she looked toward the horizon and murmured, "If you came to take him, Kobi Mensa, you will have to fight the gods themselves." The following morning, Amma woke before dawn. The mist lay thick over the hills, curling around the huts like ghosts from forgotten stories. She sat by the fire, her face pale with sleeplessness. Kobi stirred beside her, blinking his mismatched eyes, one dark and gentle, the other clouded and distant. "Mama," he whispered, "is the man gone?" Amma hesitated. "He will come again, my son. He says he is your father." Kobi frowned, confused. "You are my mother. Who else can be my father?" Her chest tightened. She wanted to say no one, to pull him close and never let the world touch him. But truth was like smoke. No matter how you tried to trap it, it found a way to escape. "Sometimes," she said slowly, "the gods write stories we don't understand until the last page." Outside, the village was already awake. Drums sounded faintly from the chief's compound. A meeting had been called. Amma knew it was about her. About Kobi. About the man who had come with wealth and power. She straightened her shawl and said quietly, "Stay inside, my son. Whatever they say, don't be afraid." By mid-morning, the people of Asanka gathered under the great tree at the village square. The chief sat on his carved stool, flanked by elders in white cloth. Kobi Mensa stood beside them, his fine clothes and shiny shoes looking out of place among the dust. When Amma approached, the whispers began. "That's her, the woman of the hill. She raised the cursed child. Now the real father has come to claim him." Amma bowed before the chief. "You called for me, my lord." The chief cleared his throat. "Amma, the man who stands before us says the boy you raise is his son. Is it true?" Amma's voice trembled slightly. "I found the boy by the river, abandoned in the storm. I did not know whose child he was. I only knew he was alone." Kobi stepped forward, holding a gold chain in his hand. "When I saw him at the market, I knew. His eye, his face, it is mine. And this," he said, showing the chain, "was buried with him. My family's crest. The same symbol carved on the cloth you found him in." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Amma's breath caught. She remembered that cloth, the one she had washed and used as a pillow for Kobi's cradle. The chief turned to her again. "You have done a noble thing, Amma. But a child belongs with his blood. The father has come to take him." Amma's heart screamed, but she bowed her head. "And what of the mother's heart, my lord? Does love count for nothing?" There was silence. Only the wind moved through the trees. Then Kobina spoke softly, his voice breaking. I do not wish to steal him from you, Amma. You saved what I lost. But I want to give him more. A name, an education, a chance to rise beyond this village. Let me take him to the city. Amma looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. And what will I be then? Just the woman who once carried your shame. Kobina's eyes fell to the ground. He had no answer. That evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Amma found Kobi sitting by the old baobab tree, the same place she'd found him years ago. He was drawing patterns in the dirt with a stick, strange spirals and symbols, the same kind she'd seen around him the night he was abandoned. What are you doing, my son? Kobi didn't look up. Mama, I saw him, the man, in my dream. He was crying by the sea. There was a woman beside him. She said, tell him the curse is not on the child, but on his heart. Amma felt the hairs on her arms rise. Who was the woman? Kobi pointed toward the sunset. She said she was my mother. Amma's breath caught. Your mother? He nodded. She told me you were chosen to save me. And that when the storm returns, I must make a choice too. Amma knelt beside him, holding his small hands. Listen to me, Kobi. You are not cursed. You are a child of the gods. Whatever happens, remember. Love made you, not shame. He smiled softly. Then I will stay where love lives. 2 nights later the wind changed. The sky turned dark, heavy with the scent of rain. Amma felt it before it came. The same storm from 10 years ago, as if the past itself had returned. Thunder cracked. The first drops fell. And in the distance, Amma saw torches flickering near the riverbank. Men were shouting. She recognized one voice, Kobina's. Without thinking, she ran into the storm, Kobi following close behind. The rain came in torrents, blinding and fierce. When she reached the river, she saw them, Kobina and his guards, trying to cross the flooded bridge. The current roared like an angry beast. Kobina, she shouted. What are you doing? He turned, drenched and desperate. He's gone. I came to find you both, but the boy. Before he could finish, a loud crack split the air. The bridge gave way. One of the guards fell into the river, screaming. Kobi ran forward, his eyes glowing strangely in the lightning. Mama, the river is angry, he whispered. It remembers. Amma grabbed his arm. Stay back. But Kobi stepped closer to the water, raising his hands as if listening to something deep beneath the surface. The wind howled, yet his voice was calm. You took me once. You will not take again. The gods who left me will now see me. The river surged higher, and then, to everyone's astonishment, the water began to calm. Kobina watched in awe as the storm's fury softened, the current easing just enough for them to pull the fallen man to safety. When it was over, Kobi collapsed in Amma's arms, shivering but alive. Kobina fell to his knees before them. Forgive me, he whispered. All these years I thought my shame was buried, but it lived in him. And you carried it with grace. Amma looked at him through tears. No child is a shame, Kobina. Only the heart that cannot love him is cursed. The next morning the storm was gone. But something new had come to Asanka, respect. The same villagers who once mocked Amma now bowed their heads when she passed. They spoke of Kobi as the boy who calmed the river, the one chosen by the spirits. Kobina stayed in the village for days, trying to know his son. He brought gifts, clothes, books, even sweets from the city. But Kobi stayed quiet around him. One evening, Kobina approached Amma outside her hut. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in orange fire. Amma, he said, I have seen your strength, but I cannot stay. The world I built cannot understand a son like him. They will try to hide him again. Amma's eyes filled with tears. Then what do you want of me? Kobina smiled sadly. I want to help you both live. There is land on the coast. Quiet, fertile, safe. Take it. Build a new home. Let him grow where no one calls him cursed. He placed a small wooden box in her hands. Inside was the gold chain, the family crest, and a folded paper with land deeds. Amma looked at him long and hard. You could stay. He could know you. Kobi shook his head. The gods wrote this story for you, Amma. Not me. Before dawn, he left without another word. Amma and Kobi moved to the coast, where the air smelled of salt and dreams. Their hut became a home for travelers and orphans, a place where no one was turned away. Kobi grew tall and strong, his gift deepening. He could sense storms, heal small wounds with his touch, and guide fishermen to safe waters. The people called him the boy who spoke to the river. One evening when he was nearly grown, he asked, "Mama, do you ever miss him?" "My father." Amma smiled faintly. "Sometimes. But then I remember. He gave you back to me." Kobi looked at her, his mismatched eyes shining in the firelight. "And when I have children, I will tell them, my mother was the bravest woman in all of Asanka." She laughed softly. "And I will tell them my son was born in trouble but destined for greatness." One night many years later, an old man arrived at their home by the coast. His clothes were torn, his body weak. Amma recognized him even before he spoke. It was Kobi Mensa. His wealth had faded, his family gone. He had nothing left but memories. Kobi, now a young man, helped him inside. When their eyes met, something passed between them: recognition, forgiveness, and quiet love. Kobi wept. "The sea took everything from me," he said. "But it brought me back to what mattered." Amma placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then the sea has finally learned mercy." Kobi stayed with them until his last days, fishing beside Kobi, telling stories to the children Amma sheltered. When he passed, they buried him under a palm tree facing the water. Kobi carved into the wood. He was lost in shame but found in love. Years turned to decades. Amma grew old, her hair silver like moonlight. But her eyes still held the same fierce fire. Kobi became a healer, known across villages and towns. People said when he touched the sick, rivers calmed and storms quieted. He never married, but he raised many, the abandoned, the unwanted, the lost, just as Amma had done for him. When people asked about his past, he would smile and say, "I was born in a storm, but I found my peace in a woman's arms." Amma died quietly one morning, the sea whispering outside her window. They say Kobi didn't weep. He simply sat by her body, humming the same lullaby she used to sing. Even when the river forgets its way, the sea will still remember its name. He buried her beside the old baobab tree by the coast, where the wind always carried her song. And every year when the storms returned, the villagers claimed they could hear two voices in the wind, a mother and her son whispering across the waves. Moral of the story: love is not written in blood, but in the courage to choose it again and again. Amma proved that the ugliest child could hold the purest heart, and that sometimes the greatest miracle is simply refusing to turn away.